Hi everyone, in this lesson we're learning how to convert percents to fractions and fractions back to percents. Let's take a look. In our first skill at the top here, we're converting percents to fractions, and it says to convert a percent to a fraction, divide the percent by 100 and simplify. So here, 56% means 56 out of 100. Okay, anytime you take a percent, you just simply take that number and you put it over 100 because that's the percent. Now what we want to do is we want to simplify this fraction. And so we want to make an equivalent fraction in its simplest form. So we can start dividing by common factors. We really want the greatest common factor. So when I look at 56 and 100, I might say, hey, they're both divisible by 2, but could I go even further? And the case is you can actually divide both by 4. Could you divide by 2 and then divide by 2 again? Absolutely. That's the same thing as dividing by 4. And when I simplify these both by 4, I end up getting 14/25. That's the simplest form of the percent, 56%. So 56% and 14/25 are the same value. 3.4%, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put 3.4 over 100. Now, I know that looks like it would be simplified, but we don't keep decimals in our fraction values. We don't keep a decimal in the numerator or in the denominator. So what I'm looking at here is I want to multiply instead the numerator and the denominator by 100. What you can see here is I really just took the decimal of 3.4, and by moving it one spot to the right, which is multiplying by 10, I'm doing that to my denominator as well. 100 becomes 1,000, and now I have no more decimal. I do want to simplify this though. These are both divisible by 2, and when I divide both of those values by 2, I end up getting 17/500ths. 128.5%. I'm going to put that over 100. Again, I see that I have a decimal, so what I do is I move the decimal one spot to the right, which is really multiplying by 10. So if that becomes 1285, then my denominator would become 1,000. These numbers are both divisible by 5. And when I divide them both by 5, I end up getting 257 over 200. Let's take a look at some more practice. 72%. I'm going to follow the same routine. So this would become 72 over 100. They're both divisible by 2, but they're also actually both divisible by 4. And if I divide both of those numbers by 4, I end up getting 18 over 25, 18/25. 8.1% becomes 8.1 over 100. We don't want the decimal to be there, so we're going to multiply them both by 10, which gives us 81 over 1,000, and those do not have any common factors, and that would be my final answer. 4.35% over 100. Now, how many times do I have to move the decimal on that one to the right? In this one, I'd have to move it to the right twice, which really means I'm multiplying it by 100. And if I multiply 100 by 100, which means I'm moving the decimal at the end of the 100 twice, that would become 10,000. I can simplify both of these numbers by dividing them each by 5. And of course, if you needed to grab a calculator for this, that should be fine. And we end up getting 87 over 2,000. Last one, 345.2 over 100. How many times would I want to move the decimal in both of my numbers? Once. These numbers are both divisible by 4. And, if you didn't know that at first, remember the divisibility rule for 4 is that the last two digits have to be divisible by 4. 52 is divisible by 4, so that means the entire number is divisible by 4. That's a little divisibility rule trick. And I end up getting 863 over 250. Awesome. So what I'm going to encourage that you do right now is you take a look at these 4 problems and you do them exactly how we did the previous 4. So I'm going to encourage you to go ahead and pause, write these problems down, see if you can write down what the answer would be, and then press play and see how you did. Go for it. All right. Hopefully you're joining me back after pressing play. Let's check to see how we did. So the first one, 95 over 100, divide those by 5, we get 19/20. 6.6 over 100, we end up moving the decimal one spot for both, multiplying by 10, divide both of those by 2, and we get 33/500. 8.22% over 100 becomes 822 over 10,000. Divide both of those by 2, and we get 411 5,000ths. Last one, we put 256.8 over 100, multiply both by 10, divide by 8 in this case, until we get 321 1/25ths. Great. Second skill, converting fractions to percents. Now, I'm going to show you two different strategies. It really depends on what the fraction looks like, especially in the denominator, about what's the easiest way to convert it to a percent. So here it says to convert a fraction to a percent, convert the fraction to a decimal and multiply the result by 100. So if I can figure out, hey, this fraction is what as a decimal, then going from decimal to percent is just multiplying by 100. That's pretty easy there at the end. And I'm going to show you two different strategies. For example, 4/5, I can rewrite 4/5 with a denominator of 100. So I know that 5 times 20 is 100. So if I multiply 5 times 20 and I get 100 in my denominator, 4 times 20 would get me 80 in my numerator. And 80 over 100, well, we were just taking all these fractions and putting them into percents. We know that 80 over 100 is really just 0.80. It's 80 hundredths. And if I want to change that to a percent, I multiply that by 100, 1, 2, and I end up getting 80%. And this one ended up working out really nicely because you can easily multiply 5 by 20 to get that base, that denominator of 100. Whereas in the next one, 1/8, 8 doesn't multiply into 100 as friendly. Now you could, it is 12.5, that's going to be a spoiler. But the other thing is that you could simply do the division. Don't forget, a fraction is really a division bar, okay? So this is saying 1 divided by 8. When I do 1 divided by 8 and I set up my traditional long division here, what I'm really doing is I'm seeing how many times does 8 divide into 1. And after you do the long division, or you do whatever method of dividing that you learned how to do, you're going to end up getting 0.125. And then if I want to take that decimal and turn it into a percent, I multiply the result by 100, which means to move the decimal 2 spots to the right, and that's going to get me 12.5%. So we have these different strategies, and it really depends on what's the denominator that would help us. Could I have done this same strategy doing 4 divided by 5? Absolutely. Okay, so we have these different ways that we can definitely get this done. So we're going to do the same thing that we did from the previous skill. I'm going to do these 4 with you, and then I'm going to encourage you to pause, try the next 4 on your own, and then press play and see how you did. 7/10. I can transform 10 into 100 so easily by multiplying by 10 over 10, which would get me 70 over 100, which is just 0.70. 0.70 is 70%. Easy. 5/6. I can't convert a 6 into 100 nicely at all. 6 times, it would be a repeating decimal value actually. So what I want to do is I want to see how many times does 6 divide into 5. And you can use, again, whatever long division method that you want to use. There's so many different strategies. But what will end up here is we're going to get 0.833. And it's actually 0.3 repeating. This 3 is just going to continue on and on and on. Now, when I go to convert this now to a percent, I would move my decimal 2 spots to the right. 1, 2. And I end up getting 83.3 repeating percent. Same thing with 3/8. We talked about the denominator of 8 on the beginning of this skill. And same idea, I don't know it. So I would have to see how many times does 8 divide into 3. Using my long division method, I end up getting 0.375. And if I move the decimal 2 spots to the right, I end up getting 37.5%. Okay, so now for these next 3 problems, I'm going to encourage you to pause your screen, try these out on your own, and then press play and see how you did. Go for it. Okay, hopefully you're joining me back after pressing play. Let's take a look. 13 over 25, I can multiply those both by 4. That gives me 52 100ths, which is then 0.52, which is 52%. 8 over 11, I can't multiply 11 by a friendly number to get 100, so I'm going to divide 11 into 8. And hopefully if you did your division that way, you ended up getting 0.727, and it's going to continue to repeat 727272. If I move my decimal 2 spots to the right, I end up getting 72.72%, with that 72 at the end repeating. And now the last one, 5/30ths. 30 does not multiply by a friendly number to get 100, so I'd have to see how many times does 30 divide into 5. And if I do my long division, I get another repeating decimal, 0.166666666 forever. Move the decimal over 2 spots to the right by multiplying by 100, and I get 16.6% with the repeating 6. 16.6 repeating percent. That's better. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.